Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Alice Frick Hagaman. We'll be discussing her fantastic book, Searching for Home, a World War II orphan's true story of survival and grace. Available for purchase through Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. And guys, I will say that Alice was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best movers in the business. Far Eastern Marketing Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, make sure you're doing yourself a favor and you're contacting our great friends over at Far Eastern. And you can find out more information on them at fareasternmarketing.com. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Alice, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you so much for being a guest. How are you?
Thank you. I'm just fine. I'm well, and I hope you are and continue to be. I thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, listen, Alice, the pleasure is all ours, okay? We are avid readers here at this network. We truly believe in the value of education, and this book is historical. It's taken from true life experiences, so there's so much to be gained here, and we're absolutely looking forward to it. Now, before we go into the book, though, Alice, let's hold off slightly. Start by telling our listening audience a little bit more about yourself and your background, please.
Well, I am currently a retired public school teacher living in Durham, North Carolina with my husband, John. And I graduated from Greensboro College and received my master's degree in elementary education from the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. So you and I have a lot in common in that we like to teach. And that is my first love, and even though I'm retired, I enjoy working with young teachers when I can, and so I love spreading the good news of educating people and informing them about people around the world. Searching for Home is my first book.
You know, Alice, before we go into the book, let me hold off slightly again and be the first person to tell you here on our network. Thank you for all of the work and the dedication that you did in the years that you were teaching, being an educator. And I know you still work with educators now, as you stated. But listen, for me, I taught for 4 years. My significant other now is a high school teacher, and she's taught for about 15 years. And again, here in our household, we understand, A, the importance of education, but also B, that teachers and educators never get the amount of credit that they deserve for how much work they have to do. I mean, yeah, you're an educator, and you may be teaching history or math or English, but let's be honest, anybody that's ever been in the position understands you're going to wear multiple hats, right? Certain days you're teaching history. Other days you're being a therapist. Other days after that you're being a friend. And then you're being a referee. And I mean, there's so much that goes on that you have to juggle. And we thank you for all of the work that you did shaping and molding the minds of future generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I had the pleasure of being an elementary teacher for over 30 years.
Wow.
So it's been a pleasure to be in the profession.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Alice.
But it is hard work.
Of course. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. Well, Alice, we'll have you on the network again, and we'll discuss your educational background, okay? But today is all about Searching for Home. Tell us a little bit more about your book.
Searching for Home is a true story of survival and grace. It is the story of Ina. Ina's full name is Ina Wolkovich Gardner Nichols. Ina is a dear friend of mine, and it was February of 2014 when Ina and I were attending church one Sunday morning. And there was a lot going on in the news about invasion into the Ukraine. And knowing that Ina was from the Ukraine, I asked her what she thought about all of the disturbing news that we were hearing. And she said, well, the Ukraine has always been under attack and always been very vulnerable to military takeovers. And she was disturbed by it, but at the same time, I asked her, I said, well, do you have any family in the Ukraine? And she said, no, she was an orphan during World War II. And I thought all the years that she and I have been together, I never knew that she was an orphan during that time. And I was just taken back by what she was telling me. And she looked at me and she said, oh, Alice, I just wish that I could share my story with my grandchildren. They really don't know who I am. They just think I'm the grandmother that talks funny, and meaning her accent. And so I told her immediately, I said, well, Ina, if you'll tell me a few of your stories, I'll be glad to write some of them for you. And she just looked at me in astonishment and said, oh, you would do that for me? And she took my hand and she started to tear up a little bit. And I thought, wow, I have hit something here that I'm not sure that I can promise and come forward with anything. But as time went on, after the church service and later in the day, I asked her, I said, why don't we get together for lunch and you can just tell me a few of your stories and I'll write them. And that's how it got started. Now, I made it sound very simple. It was not simple. Ina had amazing stories. She had amazing memories that she shared with me. And I would probe her with many questions to better understand her true feelings and reflections about the memories she told me. And when we were together, this story, her stories, just became more and more personal to both of us. And we prayed together, we cried, we laughed together, we shared her compelling stories. But as time passed and my writing progressed, Ina continued to tell me more and more of her memories that she had from not only in Europe, but also when she had challenging experiences that she faced as a young non-English immigrant in the United States. So this story became many stories, many memories. And I started putting that together. So it was a journey for both of us.
Mm-hmm. Again, here in the line with Alice Frick Hagaman. We're discussing her wonderful book, Searching for Home, a World War II orphan's true story of survival and grace. Available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. You know, Alice, next place that I wanted to go to, let's talk about inspiration. Now, you've already started to go into it, and thank you very much for that. Now, I'm curious, so let's take a step back and go a little more broad, because we understand how this book came about based upon what you just said. Now, in terms of writing in particular, was that something, and I know this is your first book, but growing up, was writing something you always had a desire to do? Was it something you classified maybe as a hobby of yours? Were there particular artists that inspired you? What inspired you to embark upon a creative journey, become a writer outside of your friend asking you to tell her story?
Well, I will tell you that I guess the teacher in me came out because I talked to my students about everyone has a story. As I was teaching reading and as I was teaching writing and authorship of student work, I encouraged my students to tell their stories. And when they did, there was tremendous satisfaction in that. With Ina's story, well, it was all based on her memories. And memories do not come in chronological order. They just pop into your mind. They grab your attention in the middle of the night, or they grab your attention just before you walk out the door. And that's what happened to Ina. And so she would tell me all of these stories, and I just had piles and piles of pages documenting many of the stories that she told me. But since those memories were not in chronological order, I needed to put them in some kind of order. Now, Ina would refer to dates and times, and she would tell me what was going on in the world, in the Ukraine, and her journey, magnificent, incredibly long journey from the Ukraine to Germany, that I knew that so many of these memories were just completely out of order as far as what she was telling me. And I needed to put them in the historical framework. Mm-hmm. And that's where I decided that I would create a timeline. In other words, what was going on during World War II and what was going on in Ina's life at that time. And that charting and that organization is what helped me develop the story of Ina from the time that she was a very young orphan at age 3 to adulthood. So it was a challenging time for me as I was writing to do that. But I decided when the book was close to being finished that I would give the reader my timeline and let them see in a timeline of the dates, what was happening in the world, and then what was happening to Ina, so that they could see the progression of her life.
Absolutely.
Because we're talking about a very long life here and a lot of experiences.
Absolutely. Alice, as we start to tie up this wonderful interview, I'm curious, what would you say was a highlight for you in this process, either writing the book, doing the research, or, maybe if not a highlight, maybe something that surprised you that you weren't expecting prior to embarking upon this journey?
Well, I guess, first of all, like I said, I was writing all of these snippets of memories and putting them together. When this started coming together, I realized this had a powerful story. There were people in this story that just seemed like that they came to life without any knowledge of Ina. They just took her on. They took care of her. These characters did, and they just were able to give her love, and that was a powerful thing for me to see how she survived, and yet the people, just ordinary people, coming into her life. And we talked about, where is God in all of this? And Ina said, God was there through these people, Alice. I know he was. And so that was a very aha moment for me, to take that challenge of getting her memories and putting them in a historical framework, and yet weaving in the emotions and the just all the feeling that there was love and caring everywhere she went.
Alice, we've discussed so much information today. Now, the educator in you not only wrote this book talking about your friend Ina's life and taking place, of course, around World War II, and there's so much information and education to be received that way. But it didn't end there. You ended up adding in more into the book for the reader. Talk to our listening audience and articulate what that is, please.
Yes, thank you, Benji. You're right. There is so much more. I did the timeline for the reader in the back of the book that shows not only the what was happening year by year to Ina in her life, but also what was happening in history that was affecting her dramatically. And so I wanted to include this timeline that would help the reader know what was going on, not only with Ina, but also in history. I also included something that I really enjoy, and that is book talk groups or book club groups, where people get together and share their reading, and they talk about chapter to chapter what happened in the book and what happened in the story, and then talking about the characters. But my questions that I put in the back of the book give the reader or readers in a group discussion some questions to think about, and also how they can relate it to perhaps their own lives. You know, just the title of the book, Searching for Home, for me, it's a powerful thing because home is different for different people. People find home in so many different ways. It's the acceptance, and it's the love that they feel and the security that they feel of home. And that's what Ina was looking for all the time, that she was just that little child all the way to being an adult. And I know that readers go through very much feelings that Ina had as well. So I think that these two items of the reflections and also the timeline will help them. I also included a map that is of Europe. It's certainly not drawn to scale, but it gives the reader an opportunity to just look at the distance it was from the Ukraine all the way into Poland and then into Germany. All of the traveling that she did, and what a journey that was. And I wanted the readers to see what Europe looked like in World War II. So I think that will be helpful to them.
I love it. I love it. You know, guys, and you know what I love even more? We've discussed so much information today. We're at the end of the interview now, but yet we've barely scratched the surface. There's still so much left to be discovered. Listen, you have to pick up the book. You have to pick up the book. That's the only way to gather all of the information. And always remember, this is based upon a true story. It's a historical book. It's a nonfiction. And it has such a great message underneath. Listen, do yourself a favor. Head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, pick up your copy of Searching for Home, a World War II orphan's true story of survival and grace by Alice Frick Hagaman. You surely will not be disappointed. Let's grow, let's develop, let's educate ourselves. And it starts with this amazing narrative. Alice, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you once again for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction.
Thank you so much for having me.